Hi, this is Kerry Artak with Wicked Stocks, bringing you your daily Tesla report for Monday, June 9th, 2025. Let's take a look at the charts. Start with the big picture. Price ceiling well above the market now in the low 350s. You got 359.39. That is still a 50% upside retracement from that December high against the more recent April low. And you also have a 2-year channel top. They continue to behave well, these longer term structures, especially if they behaved relatively well before that. And I do say that it did. It was back in, I think this was November of last year, that we closed for the first time above this 2-year structure that set up the 5-year structure at 515.51 as a likely 3 to 5 month target. It took about 3 weeks before we closed in on it, did not test it, fell away. We did did test that channel top on the way down. I got a bit of a slight bounce for a week, but we closed below it the following week and then continued cascade south. And so it's been a little sloppy, to say the least. What I mean by that is we've pushed through this area on an intra-week basis only. I'll show you the daily chart right here. You can see, and you probably remember this well, a week and a half ago, where we had closed above it on a daily basis, then awaiting a possible weekly settlement above the same area for a green light on a longer term position trade, on a longer term buy signal that would have likely, or at least anticipated, the 515.51 channel top once again, quite possibly by the end of the year. But that wasn't to be, of course, and that we did not get the buy signal overall. We were mentioning how you can play the short side, just based on the fact that the market closed the week back below this area. And it really was just a couple of days later, if you recall, this would have been Wednesday of last week, that we closed below this recently formed rising channel bottom that is now at 350.87. That was our sell signal. That was our go with sell signal down to the channel bottom that is now at 282.82. We were mentioning, if you recall, 2 to 3, maybe 3 to 5 weeks. Now, obviously, facts on the ground, the verbal war between Trump and Musk, this obviously played out. This was the impetus. But technically speaking, we were on the short side of the market when the big sell-off occurred, and we did test this channel bottom at 282.82, which is still buyable support over only the 2 to 3 week time frame. From here, we can round back up into the low 350s again, where we still have a trouble spot as we look at this weekly chart once again at 351.39 to 353.14. So if you're a 2 to 3 week swing trader, you can buy 282.82 if you haven't already on weakness, anticipating the low 350s over the next 1 to 3 weeks, depending on volatility, of course. Now, on the way up, we have 329.48. I don't expect to see that today, but on the way up, we do have a 3/8 upside Fibonacci at 309.31. Now, as the market relaxes into a more constrained volatility, some of these levels can be bumped up. Like 309.31, I'm very comfortable with it as an intraday resistance level, and I could almost call it a session containment. Holding below 309.31 will keep 282.82 in reach again over the next day or two. I'm not encouraging you to sell 309.31 and hold it overnight. Unless, here's a scenario where we test it early in the day and we fall away and perhaps even close negative on the day. Close back below, Friday's 295.14 low, for instance, or settlement price rather. That would then likely result in a test of 282.82 on Tuesday tomorrow. So that is just one scenario. But, if we pushed through 309.31 today, that should set off follow-through buying to 329.48, quite possibly on an intraday basis. So, there's two scenarios. We push through 309.31 early in the day and then reach 329.48 intraday, where a daily high can be placed, and we might even fall away from 329.48 for more than a day because it does correlate with this low area going back several weeks. So that is one scenario. The other scenario is merely closing above 309.31 today does set up 329.48 tomorrow into Wednesday, where once again we can top out on a daily basis and possibly fall away again into later week. It would be a settlement above 329.48, and I don't see that today, but possible by the end of the week or later in the week that we close above 329.48, and that only sets up roughly another 20-point move to the upside, wherein we would retest this low 350s, which is once again kind of our 1 to 2 week objective, 3 at the very most with reduced volatility. Holding above 282.82 does maintain a low 350s target once again, where we can top out on a weekly, possibly monthly basis and fall away again. It would be a settlement above 353.14 at the end of a week in the coming weeks. That would tell me we've got a good low through the rest of the year, likely continued gains into the low 500 region by the end of the year, but we're a long way from that right now. In fact, we can take a look at the downside. We actually did last Thursday on the big sell-off come very close to testing, I think within about a half a point, the 5/8 downside Fibonacci. So we have this really kind of a 10-point range now. And the way I think you could play this is you're buying 282.82 on weakness, and whether that's a day trade or a 3 to 5 day swing trade back to 329.48, or a 2 to 3 week swing trade back to low 350s, that is all valid at or above the 282.82 area. And so these are two very close levels still. They're going to continue to open up over time. 272.87 is a static level. 282.82 rises daily. For the time being, I'm going to call it a range of support. But at some point, the way I'm going to frame this, and you could almost right now, and that is to say, that if we close below 282.82, but we don't close below 272.87, that could be an indication to exit a long position you may have established earlier that day. In terms of playing the short side, as we continue through the rest of June and actually into the third quarter, that could come off with a settlement below 272.87. So you're going long, staying long above 282.82 on the 2 to 3 week time frame into the low 350s, and then you're going short over the 1 to 2 week time frame below 272.87. Over the following week or two, I would expect this 221.86 low settlement price on the daily chart that was put out in April. But I do think if we close below 272.87, that would obviously also involve a settlement below this rising channel bottom at the base of a move. And that in itself is a significant sell signal. I think if we close below 282.82, and let's throw in 272.87 for good measure and a little bit more of a confirmation on a longer term sell signal, I think within 1 to 2 weeks you can anticipate 221.86, but you can also anticipate within a month or two this long-term 5-year channel bottom at 159.50 to 165.60. So closing below this 5/8 Fibonacci at 272.87, we do essentially have a double sell signal if you include the 282.82 channel bottom. And I think by the end of July, perhaps by the end of August at the very latest, this 159.50 to 165.60 formation, this is a long-term channel bottom, 5 years, able to contain selling through the rest of the year and quite possibly through all of 26. This is a base of long-term support for Tesla. If we take it out to the downside, does not look good for Tesla as a company, as a corporation. The growth of the stock, I think, is seriously inhibited. But there's no point in going there. I don't expect it. I'm just kind of telling you what I would see on the charts if that were to happen, say, by the end of the year. But for right now, we're in a buy opportunity in the low 280s, expecting 309.31 over the next day or two, expecting 329.48 over the next 3 to 5 days, and over the next couple of weeks, we can push right back into this low 350s where we have a real test of resistance. And if we can close the week at least at this juncture, above 353.14. Any week above 353.14, it looks pretty good to the upside as we continue through the third quarter and into later year. This last week, wickedstocks.com put out 3 stock picks: Tempest AI, Adobe, and Dana Holdings, all of which are showing the potential for a 20 to 30% return on the underlying stock if the buy signal goes off. And so we put out 2 stock picks every week at wickedstocks.com. You can see Tempest, Adobe, and Dana Holdings right now by going to wickedstocks.com and taking advantage of our 5-day free trial. You'll also get 2 stock picks this week: our daily Triple Q, our daily SPY, our weekly Apple stock analysis, etc., etc. Go to wickedstocks.com, take advantage of our 5-day free trial. I will be back tomorrow with Tuesday's Tesla. You have a great day.